everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we are getting ready for some beehive splits. I was out to the Beehives yesterday and I looked into a hive that I just recently did a split. They have made 8 emergency queen cells or supersedure cells. 2 is good insurance to make sure if, one is weak or delaying or anything, but 8 is just insane. So the first one born hatches out and she stings the rest before they're born, or if they are not that far advanced, they will find each other, battle it out to the death, and the winner takes all. The winner is the queen of the hive. So with 8, they're on 3 frames. I would rather take 2 frames out, leave them 1 frame, and take splits from those other frames with splits of bees and larvae and honey from the other strong hives. The package hives that I got from the south are just doing great. They are just building up gangbusters. They have honey, they build wax, they are being, as a beekeeper, I'm giving them drawn wax comb on the frames from previous hives. I don't have one sitting here, of course, right now. But I am out of hive components. So I had some parts that I had built a couple years ago, and I followed somebody else's measurements online, not even considering that they might not be correct. So it turns out that they were likely 8 frame measurements. So fortunately, I only got 2 covers done and 1 hive bottom. I'll be able to take them apart and reuse the covers as a hive bottom with a new sheet of plywood on the bottom. Not a huge deal. I will have to scrap the aluminum for another project for another time. They'll get used one way or another. So let me show you what I've got going on today. So in the past, I've used Man Lake as my primary source for getting bee equipment to the farm. It's like free shipping over $100, which is real easy to do because 4 of these boxes is, $20 maybe. Inner covers, this is what an inner cover is right here. This is a homemade one. This is one I'm working on, and this one actually is about 1 inch smaller than I wanted. But you know what? The bees don't care if I'm building with scrap. I mean, literally, look what I'm building with. I use this, I bought this. This is lath material or lathe material for doing plaster on walls. You can use it for shims. But, you get an 8-foot section of this, and it's like $1. You just staple it all on. I have got a pneumatic stapler that I picked up, and my pneumatic stapler is here. It's a tool shop one from Menards. It's like $17. You have to oil it every time you use it. It takes different size staples, but you know what? It doesn't have to be $100 equipment and tools, because then that takes away any savings of building this stuff on my own. So I'll just shim this out a little bit further to make up for the size difference. Underneath, it's going to be the same size. This is just an inner cover. This is an outer cover I'm making. I've got some flashing that he had left over from another job. I've trimmed it to fit, run it through his metal bending brake. But here's my outer cover that I've got ready to go here. And I had picked up a router for him years ago that he wasn't using, and I taught myself how to use it. I just got brave and tied my hair back and did it. So this is all primed, painted, and ready to go. You can use 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch plywood. I believe all this was 3/4 inch. I just figured do a little heavier. It doesn't have to be pressure treated. They recommend pine or cedar. For money savings, I just pick up whatever stock pine is available. And I've got some scrap material of MDF that I'm thinking of using for a cover. It's going to be covered in the aluminum, so I don't think it'll make a real huge difference. It might absorb moisture in the long run, but it's worth a test. Anyways, it was just packing material for something that we got shipped in a crate. So you can follow along and see what I'm doing here. This is a bottom board. This is the bottom of the hive that the box sits on. It's just real basic. And you just cut out a notch here. I did this with the router. You can do it with the table saw, which our table saw kind of kicks, so I don't like to use it much. I just preferred to use the router for it. And get your 3 pieces here, nail them on. You can screw them on for extra strength, but a 6D nail works real good for doing that. And you can even just use your stapler too and use different size staples. Then you're not, you know, kind of going back and forth. But for longevity, I just like to use the nails to get it all going. Here's one I've got complete. And again, see, it's not perfect. I used scrap aluminum that we had on hand, but it covers it. Does a fine job. And if you're interested, I'm going off just the measurements of my boxes because all the measurements I find on the internet are different. They can vary up to an inch. So my outer cover here is 22¼ inches by 18½ inches. The actual box is 20 inches by 16¼ inches. So it just has to be bigger to set over this. And this top will have a 1-inch hole drilled into it, or you can drill 2 3/4-inch holes and then just use your saw to cut out in between. And then you can use a bee escape that is a standard industry bee escape for them to use. Real handy to have when you're extracting the honey anyways. So our bottom board here is 15¼ inch by 21¾ inch for the plywood. And then this is standard 1-inch pine that I'm using, 1 by 2-inch pine. So we are just going to do some assembly here, and you can follow along and see what I'm doing, and we'll just talk. So it's getting later in the day, and I just got some things that I wanted to wrap up. And I thought, you know, a queen takes about a week and a half to develop, and it's like 2 weeks to grow. I have to check all my information on that, but just have this all ready so that I can have her placed in the new hive before she's even ready. And then there's no queen introduction. To mail order a queen or to get one locally, an insect, $35, $45. And if you ship them from afar and you order them in quantity, you can get them for $25 a piece. But that doesn't mean that they're guaranteed or that they're going to survive, and you don't know how old they are. So with this, I'm getting virgin queens from my own stock, and it's just a great way to do it because then you're not dumping all your money, your honey money, into more insects. Now you can glue this stuff up also. And this is just hooked right up to the air compressor. And I just lowered the pressure on the air compressor also. And I think I'm using 3/8-inch nails right now. Get my corners tacked down first because I am using a piece of scrap here. I'm going to kind of go along and make it up as we go. So, honey money. We sell our honey on Etsy. We were getting a lot of theft from our roadside stand, and it was basically spoiling the fun of selling the honey. And I had to put it out every day, bring it in every night, and worry that somebody might walk away with, you know, 5 or 10 jars of honey. Usually, if they stole, they would steal 1 jar of honey and 1 jar of maple syrup. And, you know, if I didn't get that bottling temperature just right on the maple syrup, then I'd have spoilage from it sitting out in the sun. That's no good. Just better to bottle it at the right temperature, not have to worry about it. So this inner cover that I'm doing right here, it is a 1/4-inch Luan, which is basically subfloor. You can get a sheet of this for maybe $10 for a 4x8. I forget the exact price, it's been a while. I'll get refreshed because I'm about to buy some more. And just put a few anchor nails in here to tack it all down. Now, I would say this was $12 maybe online for just this. My construction is a little bit different right now because you can do it with a dadoed section of wood, but you can see here on the edges it's a little bit, my top is a little bit bigger than the bottom, just because I don't want to waste it. We're very frugal around here. And the main thing about the bees is I did it because I wanted to have a farming hobby I enjoyed. I basically read books for 2 years on everything I could about beekeeping. So just like that, I've got an inner cover, and I'll get some drill bits and we'll drill that out. So that's my inner cover. It's that easy. Here's the first one I did, and this one had blown off. I forgot to put a rock on the top, so I wanted to add a couple more staples to that, so that's all set. And there's the hole that I put in the middle. I just used about a 1-inch, 3/4 inch drill, and then cut it in between, which of course my jigsaw for cutting in between, I can do it with a handsaw. I left over at the workhouse. So, speaking of which, it's late in the day, and I did not get over to the workhouse today. I'm playing hooky. Went to the scrap metal yard and got rid of some stuff. Super focused on this beekeeping since I just was out to the hive last night. And you know, we went from 0 beehives this spring to right now we have 6 hives. I did a divide yesterday with a queen cell, and then the one hive has 8 queen cells in it, so that one will be divided into 2 more hives. 8. Oh, we're going to have something like 9 hives, and we had 0 hives, and I had to pay for 2, so that's not bad. The nucleus hives were more expensive than the package bees, but being that I was using draw and comb, they caught on quick. So here's my outer cover all assembled, and I think I'm going to slip some gloves on because, you know, this stuff is razor sharp. It's dangerous. I did some cutting and notching and tried to bend things as I could. I think I'm going to need some pliers. If I can just do this with my finger. Tab knocked back. But essentially, see, this is still a little too much pressure. My staples are shooting right through, so I'm going to turn it down a little more. background. But somebody's finally across the road doing some farming. We did a little bit yesterday, the day before, and hopefully we'll be getting to do some more here real soon. We've got lots of field work to get ready. We're going to add some more hay fields on this property. And with such a wet spring, nothing's done. Guys, what's this business right here about sand? Now, one of these covers online was $26.95 for just this little bit of wood, and that's what prompted me to start getting crafty, getting brave about the wood tools. I don't want to date myself, but I went to high school in the 90s, and I took wood shop since middle school, and they were older men who just didn't believe that girls should be handling the tools. You know, they could have just easily said, put your hair up in a ponytail or something. But I've had to learn the actual woodworking skills on my own. I always knew the, tool safety. Okay, so this is the tool. This is a metal brake or a press, and this is a 30-inch press, and it also does rolling for sheet metal. We also have a hand tool. This is sold in, I believe, the heating and air conditioning section. This is only a 12-inch, so you have to slide it along, which does make it hard, but you can use this just starting in the center and folding over, and it's got a small side here and a wider side, so you can see the measurements, everything on here. But so you got, it looks like a 3/8 inch on one side and maybe and a 1 inch on the other side. So whichever side you flip it over on. See that little diamond there? That little ridge there is 3/8, and the opposite way, 1 inch. So that's a pretty decent fold. We generally are using 20-inch wide aluminum flashing, and this is sold in your roofing department. You can get it, I think it was 24-inch wide was the next size up, and it went from like $12.50 to $15.50. So depending on how much overlap you want on the sides, you could go the bigger one, but I don't want to be trimming and having too much waste. You can see here I've got a 3/4 inch fold on the side, and that's pretty good. You don't want to have too much on the side just because you're just wasting material. And then I just cut it to whatever length I'm going to make the top. So I like a landing board on my Beehive bottom board so that they've got space to land, and your cover is like 22 inches, say 22.25 inch. So I try to make this, about 24 inches and then fold over the edges. And I just kind of fit it as I go. So I'll show you the pressing. Now this is something that he got as a Christmas gift. I believe it's a Harbor Freight special. It's not super, high quality. But it certainly does get the job done. We haven't even taken it off the pallet or set it up yet. I just use it in place, and I think so far I'm the only person who's used it. It's just got a hand crank here. As I'm fitting it, I'm using a permanent marker on my material, my woodware. crimp. Thank you, buddy. So we'll go over to the high top. All right, so the camera overheated from sitting in the sun, but this is the gist of it. You just have to make sure that you do turn your air pressure down on your air compressor with these staplers. I don't remember the exact pressure that it told me to set it at, so I had to kind of fuss with it a little here and there. But, you know, the bees have never told me they didn't like my staple job or that something wasn't good enough. The main thing is that they are dry and out of the weather. And if you are interested in knowing the fit, this is a 20-inch by 10-foot roll, and this was about $12.89. So you don't get a whole lot of coverage on the sides. I know the sun is terrible. Depending on the thickness of your plywood, you might want to go ahead and bump up to the 24-inch. So I kind of had to make a judgment call the last time I bought it, and I couldn't remember what I got last time. So, you know, cosmetic-wise, go with the bigger one if that's what you choose. So that's my finished. So there's almost a whole set. I just need a bottom board for it. So we don't have a super organized workshop, as you can see here and there, but things kind of have their place. And I had found out through getting to like my saw where I build my stuff, I had some started materials from the previous year that I hadn't finished, and that hive top was one of them. So apparently I thought I was out of flashing or thought I had enough, so I just stopped. So that's a nice little surprise, is to be able to, you know, have materials on hand to do it. I made a trip to Menards the other day and I bought some more of this. This is actually 39 cents a section, and it's about 4 feet long. This is the lathe that I told you about that you can find in the building section. You can get bigger pieces of wood and cut it down, but I'm not a fan of using the table saw. I don't mind using the radial arm saw for that, but for changing the thickness of things, I don't like to do that. So I've got my router here, I'll show you. This is the router that I picked up, and you really need a router table to be able to use it. And I think I had this table left behind here at the farm when I bought it. So I just bolted it right to this to be able to use it, to make it at the good height for me. And everything, all the fences are adjustable to the thicknesses of wood I use. I kind of keep a cheat sheet notebook around for what we need to do, but this is our radial arm saw that we use, and our table saw, which is currently kind of taken apart for something else right now. I think he was switching the blade out for a different project. But this 1x3 stock, this is what they called, I think, Select, was about $3 a board. So you can see how buying wooden wares is really high priced, because this board is going to be cut into about 3 hive bottoms with a little scrap left over, and it'll take about 2 of these to do one top cover. Oh, I can also use this for the top covers also. So in the midst of making some bee equipment, I remembered that I had gotten my father-in-law bees. What's the oddest present you've ever given anybody? What's the oddest present you've ever asked for? I tend to ask for things for the farm. And my father-in-law grew up on a farm, kind of got away from the farm because of work, and always kept farming over the years as he went along. So he's getting closer to retirement now, and he is very active in his farm. I don't know how many acres total he owns. He owns some fields here and there, some fields and a farm at home, and he's always dabbled in it. So he's taught me a lot of what I know, and I had decided one year I would teach him some of the things I know. He has hayfield with beautiful clover in it, and clover honey is a sweet, nice honey. It's very light. Some darker honeys come from plants like goldenrod at the end of the year and buckwheat, and he's grown buckwheat too. We haven't had a beehive where the buckwheat is to do that, so that's something I'd like to do here. We've got some land off the edge of the north field that is all sand that we need to level out. It's a former motorcycle racing track with hills and everything, so we need to level it all out. We have some sand to make it. We have some dirt to put over the sand after it's all leveled to make it plantable, and I'll be able to try that experiment over there at some point. Everything here has been real wet this year, and then there's always equipment issues and operator issues, so probably something for next year. I was hoping to do it this year, but always planning, always keeping ahead. So my father-in-law's beehive, I had a baby and couldn't really get over there much. It's 45 minutes away. It's in an area with terrible cellular service, and I wasn't feeling comfortable really going out there in the middle of nowhere. No real close by neighbors, because people had been using the farm as a dumping site, and he had planted his farm lane so that I couldn't drive right up to the beehives. So to keep the kids safe, it just was too hard to leave them in the vehicle, a good 500 feet away, and out of sight distance and hearing distance. So I had just decided to kind of let it go and get to it when I could. Well, of course, mite populations got high, and wax moth got in there, and basically they invade the hive, they take it over, and the bees just kind of die off, and they leave, they swarm. So this particular hive didn't actually have any dead bees in it. He had called me at one point and told me that there was honey coming out of the hive. Well, that is uncapped honey is what had happened. It was fermenting and dripping out. As it was fermenting, it was getting thinner consistency because it was no longer being processed by the bees. So I went over the other day, and of course it was an absolute mess with the wax moth. It had mice in it over the winter. So what do you do about that? Well, all of the woodenware needs to be cleaned out, and you have two options. You can burn it and start over. Well, it's several $100s for just the bee equipment for a hive when you're purchasing it. So that's when I got into thinking, okay, you're in a tight spot with time and having equipment on hand. So what I'm doing now is just repainting it. The good thing to do is to have whatever you can ready, because to put a freshly painted hive component on, to put a freshly painted hive component on a beehive introduces odors to them that can be a problem for them. So like this temperature that we're having in upper 80s, close to 90 here in July, can be overwhelming with the fumes of fresh paint. So I like to let things dry for at least 2 days if I can, sometimes just a single day. And I've even known beekeepers to put paint on hives in place with the bees in the hive, and that's something I've never done. I just prefer to do it when I've got things up here in the house in rotation of being used. So on average, most of the hive components need paint about every 2 years. I've learned different paints hold up better than others, and with the beehives, I like to use oil-based paint because it seems to be really resistant to our winter temperatures for anything that is left out and not stored. So I think it's good to have that. Last year and the year before, I had some soy-based paint that I picked up at Tractor Supply, and it did not weather well at all. There was a lot of repainting from that. It was some clearance paint that I thought, well, I'll try it. Hadn't noticed that it was soy-based paint. So that was a learning lesson for me. I always use exterior grade paint, and I've done latex or oil-based. Switching back and forth can make the paint not stick in the long run. So if you do use a latex paint over oil-based, it generally is not going to stick well. So it's got to be pretty weathered or sanded down to be able to make that stick to each other. I don't know if you can hear in the background, but there's actual farming going on in the neighborhood this week. All of a sudden, 2 or 3 days ago, the wetness has finally kind of subsided. It's moved off to the eastern parts of Canada, and we have had about a week of dry weather, so the wet fields are finally getting planted. A lot of local farmers were teaming up, and you could drive by an average sized farm. I'm not talking small family farms, but like rented land and off-site lands, and see 2 or more tractors and implements doing field work all at once. So that's a good sight to see. That means things are looking better. I was really surprised. The farm across the street, they were planting corn yesterday. So today is July 12th, so you'll be seeing this, about a week later. They're really banking on a late frost. We usually get that about mid-September, or they've got a hybrid that's 90 days or less. Some bottom boards, and this is the back of my bottom board, and then I've got my rails that go around, and I'm using a 3/4 inch router bit. We're putting it right through, and I think it's 3/8 inch deep. I'll have to verify that, but I just do a 3/4 inch here and on the side. So I'm going to run through a bunch of parts. Alright, so if you notice here, I got some pieces of wood and the corners cut out on all of them. The reason that is, I had some 3/4 inch plywood from a tear out job. So I cut out, they were all a big, huge triangle piece from a piece of furniture. Let me show you what it was. It's getting new life. Reuse and repurpose. That's just the way we do things. And the bees don't mind. So here it is, all framed up. And there's the backboard I was routing and the side rails. So they've all got the groove on the end and the groove through the middle. I even used scrap pieces for a couple of the ends. So this particular end is going to be 2 pieces. Why not use it all? Why be wasteful? And then these are the side rails. These just have the 3/4 inch groove down the side. That just goes on here like this. One on each side. One over here. And a short one on the bottom. Now I could glue this here if I wanted to. Construction grade glue or wood glue, because it's going to be exterior, doesn't matter, or does not at all. The side rails are going to keep it tight, so that's not going to become a problem for a gap. Varroa mites are very, very tiny, and they could crawl up through there, but there's a whole front door for them to crawl up through, so I'm not concerned about it. So it's all going to get coated with paint anyway. I don't think it'll be any trouble at all. So I'm going to get this nailed together. I'm using, that's not the right box there. That's a different box for doing the tin. So if you've noticed, I've switched jobs here and there's been some clothing changes. I get pulled away. I was helping with tires a minute ago. We are doing 1.5 inch narrow crown staples, and we're gonna load these up. I've got my nailer that I was using the other day, so I'm just putting a couple nails here and a few nails down the side to hold it all together. So there's my homemade bottom board. I'm going to put a few more of these together so I can get a coat of paint on them tonight or tomorrow. But we'll show you it all put together. Well, I got up early in the morning and I came out here and I got my bottom boards, 2 coats of paint before lunchtime. They're all dry. They're ready to go on. I'm going to try to get to the beehives a little bit later today with my homemade bee equipment. Everybody, it is becoming a gangbusters beekeeping season for me. I have gone from 0 hives to now currently 8 hives. I just finished completing a video the other day. Watch for that. We've been doing multiple splits to prevent any swarming and overcrowding. The bees are just doing fantastic. Remember, happy bees mean happy, healthy bees and a happier, healthy you, because you get a surplus of honey at the end of the season. So remember, go over to the Etsy shop, order your honey. We have maple syrup over there too. And we'll see you all next time. Remember to hit the thumbs up and the little notification bell down in the corner, and you'll know when the next video comes out. See you next time. Bye-bye.